Hello, sweet faces. Welcome to our second week of division. We are working with two-digit divisors this week, which means that the number that is dividing in has two digits. Something important to remember about that is that we need to keep these two digits together. They can never be separated. So when we're thinking, does this number divide in? We're using the whole number outside. Now this is going to be showing you place the first. I will also show you box division. So if that is your preference, I want you to stop this video and switch. Remember, I do record them in both methods so that you have the option. I'm going to open my window a little bit bigger. There we go, so that you can see it in full screen. All right, my loves, let's dive in. Now, I cannot divide 12 into 1. That doesn't work. The number's too small. So remember, when it's too small, I slide next door. And this time I'm doing 12 into 16. That will go in one time. 1 times 12 is 12. And when I subtract 16, take away 12, I have 4. Bring down my 8. Now I'm doing 12 into 48. That's going to go in 4 times. And when I subtract, I'm left with 0. My answer is 14 with no remainder. Setting this one up, we're dividing 14 into 154. 14 does not go into 1, but it does go into 15 one time. 1 times 14 is 14. 15 take away 14 is 1. Bring down my 4. 14 goes into 14 one time. When I subtract, I have 0. My answer for this one is 11 with no remainder. Sliding over to our next one, 165 divided by 11. 11 does not go into 1, but it goes into 16. It goes into 16 one time. 1 times 11 is 11. When I subtract 16, take away 11, I'm left with 5. Bring down my 5. 11 times 5 gives me 55 on the nose. My answer is 15 with no remainder. Sliding over, 187 divided by 11. 11 does not divide into 1, but it does divide into 18. It goes in one time. 1 times 11 is 11. 18, take away 11 is 7. Bring down. 11 goes into 77 7 times with no remainder. My answer is 17. 196 divided by 14. 14 does not go into 1, but it does go into 19. It goes in one time. 1 times 14 is 14. When I subtract, I'm left with 5. Bring down my 6. 14 goes into 56 4 times with no remainder. That is the end of my, that's not the end of my sheet. I almost forgot one. Sorry, loves. Last one, 216 divided by 18. 18 does not go in to 2, but it does go into 21 one time. 1 times 18 is 18. 21 take away 18 leaves me with 3. Bring down my 6. 18 goes into 36 2 times with no remainder. Now that is the end of our first page. If you have any questions, please bring them with you to class. Otherwise, you can stop this video unless you are ready for page 2. If you are, hang tight, 'cause here we go. All right, loves, diving into page 2. This one only has a one-digit divisor. Gave you a little bit of a brain break on this one. 4 still goes outside. 4 does not go into 1, but it does go into 18 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. 18 take away 16 is 2. Bring down my 1. The closest that I can get is 4 times 5, which gives me 20. 21, take away 20 is 1, bring down my 2. 4 goes into 12 3 times exactly. I subtract, I have no remainder. My answer is 453. Taking a look at our next question, 195 divided by 15. 15 goes into 19 one time. 1 times 15 is 15. 19 take away 15 is 4. Bring down my 5. 15 goes into 45 3 times. 3 times 15 is 45. There is no remainder. My answer for this one is 13. 182 divided by 13. 13 goes into 18 one time. 1 times 13 is 13. 18 take away 13 is 5. Bring down my 2. 13 goes into 52 4 times. 4 times 13 is 52 on the nose. My answer is 14 with no remainder. All right, 228 divided by 12. 12 does not go into 2, but it does go into 22 one time. When I take 19 away, or I'm sorry, when I take 12 away, it leaves me with 10. Now remember, I know this feels like a larger number, but 12 is still larger than 10, which makes it okay. I bring down my 8. 12 times 9 gives me 108 with no remainder. My answer is 19. We have 775 divided by 25. This will say 25 on your page. Not sure why this one says 23. All right, 25 does not go into 7, but it goes into 77 3 times. 3 times 25 is 75. Subtract for 2. Bring down my 25. It's going to go in one time. Answer is 31 with no remainder. 1,450. We're dividing in 32. 32. This one is a little bit tricky, right? Because 32 does not go into 1. It does not go into 14. We had to go into 145, and that is going to go in 4 times. When we multiply 32 times 4, we get 128. And when we subtract that from 145, we get 17. We bring down our 0. 32 times 5 is the closest we can get, which gives us 160. This one has a remainder of 10. I know that 10 seems like a big remainder, but remember, as long as it's smaller than the number we're dividing with, then it is a remainder, okay? That brings us to the end of page 2. Please bring any questions that you may have with you to class. All right, loves, taking a look at page number 3. If you're not ready for this, please go ahead and pause this and come back. If you are ready, here we go. This is another one that was sticky, but you guys have been asking for bigger challenges, and I'm trying to honor that, okay? So if this is really sticky, that's okay. Each page got a little bit more difficult and had a few more stretches. So 62 does not go into 3. It does not go into 31. It does go into 318. It goes in 5 times. And 5 times 62 gives you 310. We subtract for 8, bring down our 6. Now 62 is going to go into 86 one time. That's the closest we can get. And when we subtract, we're left with 24. 24 feels like a big remainder, but remember, as long as it's smaller than our divisor, then it is a-okay. Our answer for this one is 51 with a remainder of 24. 648 divided by 18. 18 does not go into 6, but it does go into 64 3 times. 3 times 18 is 54, which leaves us with 10. Thankfully, 10 is smaller than 18, so we can bring down our 8. 18 times 6 is going to give us 108 exactly. Our answer is going to be 36 with no remainder. We have 858. Move it up a little bit. Divided by 57. 57 does not go into 8, but it does go into 85 one time. When we subtract 85, take away 57, we're left with 28. Bring down the 8. This is a super stretch. 57 times 5 is the closest we can get. That gives us 285. When we subtract that, we're left with 3. Our answer is 15 with a remainder of 3. 584, we're dividing that by 73. 73 does not go into 5. It does not go into 58. It does go into 584, and you may have noticed that this goes in 8 times exactly. We had to use guess and check with this, right? I'm going to assume that you don't know your 73 times tables. So what you can do is you can go off to the side and guess and check to see the closest you can get. 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 7 is 21, and keep guessing until you get as close as you can. That is always a super helpful strategy when we're working with multiplication and division. Sometimes we just don't know, and we have to guess and check to figure out where to go. So this one, we are dividing 82 into 2,964. 82 does not go into 2. It does not go into 29. It does go into 296. It's going to go in 3 times. When I do that, I get 246. And when I subtract 296 from 246, I get 50. Bring down my 4. The closest I can get is 6. 6 times 82 is 492. When I subtract, I'm left with 12. That is my remainder. 36 with a remainder of 12. Move this up so you can see it a little bit better. Again, 36 with a remainder of 12. And last one for this page, we have 1,831 divided by 51. We don't know our 51 times tables. We're not expected to, but we can use guess and check. 51 does not divide into 1 or 18, but it does go into 183. It is going to go in 3 times. 3 times 51 is 153. We have so far leftover of 30. It's less than 51, so that's okay. I bring down my 1. The closest I can get now is going to be 5 times. 5 times 51 is 255. When I subtract, I get a remainder of 46. Now remember, as long as my remainder is smaller than the number I'm dividing by, then that is a remainder. I know this feels big, but it is a remainder. So it's 35 with a remainder of 46. That brings us to the end of page 3. Please go ahead and stop the video unless you are ready for page 4. If you're ready for page 4, then here we go. We are doing 892 divided by 26 using traditional division. If you are looking for box, please switch your video. Let's give this a go. So we are dividing by 26. I know that 26 does not go into 8. It does go into 89 though. 26 times 3 is going to be the closest, and that is going to give me 34. When I subtract, or I'm sorry, it's not going to give me 34. Sorry, my brain was thinking of what our final answer is going to be. That is going to give me 78. Sorry about that, love bugs. When I subtract that, I get 11. I bring down my 2. 4 times 26 is going to give me 104. When I subtract, I have a remainder of 8. So this is going to be 34 with a remainder of 8. Sliding over. Sorry, friends, this keeps cutting off my screen. There we go. 34 with a remainder of 8. We have 1,056 divided by 48. Be careful of that 0 inside. Now, the closest that we can get going into 105 is going to be 2, right? 48 doesn't go into 1. It doesn't go into 10, but it does go into 105. 42 goes in 2 times. 48 times 2 is 96. When I subtract 105 from 96, I get 9. I bring down my 6. I notice a pattern. 2 times is going to give me no remainder. It's going to go in evenly 22 times. 653 divided by 42. 42 does not go into 6, but it does go into 65 one time. 1 times 42 is 42. And 65 take away 42 is going to give me 13. I bring down my 3. The closest that I can get this time is, 233. The closest I can get this time is 5. 5 times 42 is 210. When I subtract, I'm left with 23. It's going to be 15 with a remainder of 23. Moving over, we have 3 more on this page. 2,950 divided by 67. 67 is not going into 2. It is not going into 29. We have to go all the way to 295. The closest that I can get is 4. When I multiply 4 times 67, I get 268. When I subtract that from 295, I get 27. I bring down my 0. Again, the closest that I can get is 4. When I subtract 268, I'm left with 2. My answer is 44 with a remainder of 2. 2 more on this page, loves. We are almost there. 653 divided by 42. Well, that is a double for the one before. So we're going to skip that one, loves. You got a free pass on that one. I doubled my question. All right, 946 divided by 78. 78 goes outside. 946 goes inside. So we're dividing 78 in, not to 9, but to 94. It goes in one time. 94 minus 78 leaves me with 16. Bring down my 6. 2 times is the closest I can get, which gives me 156. When I subtract, I'm left with 10. 12 remainder of 10 is going to be my answer for the last one there. We have one more page, but that is the end of this page. You can go ahead and stop your video. If you are ready for final page number 5, then here we go. I'm going to adjust my screen down since this is our last page. There we go. So we are dividing 871 by 87. Now you might notice, using what you know from multiplication, that this is going to give you a base 10 answer. And what I mean by that is, if I think of how would I use multiplication to get from 87 to 871, the number 10 pops into my head as the closest that I can get. Now let's look at what it looks like as division. Keeping that in mind, 87 is going to go into 87 one time. 1 times 87 is 87. I subtract for 0. I bring down my 1. Be careful with this. When I am in the middle of a question or past the first digit and I can't divide in, meaning 87 does not divide into 1, I have to show that with a 0. This is going to be 10 remainder of 1. Remember to ask yourself, does my answer make sense? If I said that 87 went into 871 one time, that should be a red flag for my brain that I am missing something, specifically the 0. Remember, we can always check these with multiplication. So I could say to myself, well, 87 times 1 is only 87, but 87 times 10 is 870. That's really close. If I add my remainder, I'm right there. All right, 412 divided by 18. 18 is not going to go into 4, but it will go into 41 2 times. 2 times 18 is 36. When I subtract 41 from 36, I get 5. I bring down my 2. The closest again I can get is 2. 52 minus 36 is going to give me 16. Now, I know that feels like a big remainder, but remember our rules. If it is smaller than what we're dividing by, then that is A-okay. This is going to be 22 with a remainder of 16. All right, another big one. Dividing by 52. You can use 50 as a jumping off point when you're trying to do your guess and check with a number like 52. Now, 52 doesn't go into 2 or 25, but it is going to go into 250, and it is going to go in 4 times. Think of it this way. 4 times 5 is 20. If I think of using my base 10, that's about 200. That's going to get me close, right? So 4 times 52 is 208. That's the closest that I can get. When I subtract 208, I'm left with 46. It's a big number, but it's smaller than what I'm dividing by. I bring down my 8. I can get in another 9 times because 9 times 52 is 468 on the nose. Use guess and check to get you there. This has no remainder. My answer is 49. 1,544 divided by 34, we're almost there. 34 is going to go in to 154 4 times because 4 times 34 is 136. When I subtract that from 154, I have 18. I bring down my 4. The closest that I can get this time is going to be 5 because 5 times 34 is 170. When I subtract, I'm left with 14. My answer is 45 with a remainder of 14. 2 more, and then we are in the weekend. Dividing 66 into 4,135. We're dividing first into 413. That's going to go in 6 times. When I multiply that, I get 396. And when I subtract that from 413, I get 17. I bring down my 5. The closest that I can get this time is going to be 2. 2 times 66 gives me 132. When I subtract that from 175, I'm left with 43. Even though 43 is a big number, it is smaller than what I'm dividing by. So my answer is 62 with a remainder of 43. Last one, 2,740 divided by 83. Getting in as close as I can with 83 to 274. The closest that I can get is 3 times, which is 249. When I subtract that from 274, I'm left with 25. I bring down my 0. Notice how close these are. I'm going to go for another 3 times, which is going to leave me with 1. 33, remainder of 1. That brings us to the end of our 5th page. If you have any questions, bring them to class. Otherwise, have an amazing weekend.